Hello and welcome to this, my first video tutorial on Renderman for Maya. The version of Renderman for Maya which I'm using is Renderman for Maya 5.0, which comes with Renderman Studio 4.0. I'm going to demonstrate some of the new features of Renderman, most particularly the physically plausible shading, which is introduced recently. Along the way, we're going to go in two different directions. One will be physically plausible, one will be the old-fashioned Renderman direction. I'll show you some of the things which tripped me up initially when I actually started using the new version. Then I had to go back, read the documents, and hopefully the information which I'd gleaned from them will help some other people along the way. I did trip up a few times. It's the way I do things, and I may do so during this tutorial as well, so please bear with me. I'm only human. Okay. Let's just start off out of the box. Renderman installed perfectly fine. Brings up the Renderman interface here in a Renderman tab. All very nice. Nice new icons, lots of buttons to press. The first button across here is the global options, which brings up my Renderman controls window. Has a lot of other buttons which we'll come around to talking about in a while. But just straight out of the box, I'm going to try rendering this, a game asset which I made several years ago. I believe I just got a simple blend material, Lambert material in it. So I'm going to try rendering it. Just the render button is here, and again it's going to render over here. Let's just show you that again. Rendering, and yes, it renders. All very nice, cool. Like it, it's working. So I know Renderman works. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put in a ground plane here, just so I have something to get some shadows on. And I'm going to have to move up the whole plane in a second. When I say plane, I mean aircraft. So let's have a look and stack my two objects here. Let's move them up a bit so we get a little bit better. Okay, sitting it onto the ground. Yep. So, straight out of the box, having a look at what's happening here, and go back to my Renderman control again and render. Nice and quick. So that seems to be working. Now, this is working the old-fashioned Renderman way, in that it's actually using shaders from Maya, which it actually works well with, but not necessarily the best way of working these days. If we go along a physically plausible pipeline, as soon as we start doing that, we're going to have to change our materials, as I discovered. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put in a Renderman environment light. This is an RMS environment light, which is here. Okay, so let's put that in here and try re-rendering and see what happens. And I get a background working perfectly, but unfortunately all my materials seem to have disappeared. Now, why is that? It took me a while to dig through some of the manuals, but the reason is once you start using physically plausible lighting, which in actual fact this environment light is part of that subset, it's really important that all of the other aspects of Renderman are set in the same way to use physically plausible shaders all the way down the line. The two don't mix. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select all my other objects in the scene. Just take out my environment light, and I'm going to apply a new material. The new material is assign new material. So it's a Renderman surface, and it's Renderman Studio general purpose surface. This is a real Swiss Army knife of rendering materials. So let's just put that on now and re-render, and we should see something. Rather oversaturated at the moment, but yes, we are seeing our planes again, and everything else is working nicely for us. So the next thing I want to do is actually put in a material into my environment background. I'll be using an HDR or an EXR image. Let me just see what I've got here. So source images. What have I got? Renderman exercises. Let's use this, which is one of the ones actually used in the Renderman documentation as well. So it's the inside of a warehouse. I believe. Let's try re-rendering. Or actually, in fact, what I'll do is I'll put in the EXR. The EXR will actually show up better. EXR is loaded correctly in Maya. Usually, there we go. Yes, I can actually see what's happening. And I'll re-render this. Taking a little bit longer now because it's actually calculating all the information of lighting coming from the background. And yes, we can see that is lighting the scene. Not terribly well yet because we need more samples and we need to actually change some of the settings within the Renderman interface, but it is actually working now because the lighting and the materials are both working with physically plausible materials. I'll stop it here for a moment and we'll actually come back in a few minutes and I'll show you some of the ways to actually tweak this to look better.